when you call someone by something that they're full of. So full of, you can just call them that thing itself. You understand? That dude, that guy's basketball walking around. So, I don't know, you don't speak like that, but the idea is this guy plays so much basketball, we should just call him basketball. Right? So this, this idea of Allah saying, وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ, Allah is saying what I'm about to describe. If you can have these qualities, it's like you yourself are goodness walking around. That's how high these qualities are. And so the beginning of it, it seems so simple, right? Allah says about Iman, He said two things first, and then He said three things. I'll show you the first two things. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. I think everybody here knows what that means. What does that mean? To believing in Allah and the last day. Now, typically, we have believing in Allah, then the messenger, then the last day. There's a sequence. But what happened over here? Allah mentioned first Allah, then He mentioned the last day, akhirah, immediately. There's a lot of commentary among ulama, even, Razi wrote about this, and Alusi rahimahullah wrote about this. Why mention that over here? Why mention Allah and the last day? Because these are the two things that motivate someone to do good things. The highest reason you should be doing and I should be doing good things is what? Allah. I want to make Allah happy. I want to please Allah. I'm cautious of Allah. I'm aware of Allah. I'm thankful to Allah for everything He's done for me. The least I should do is the few good things He asked me to do. The number one motivation is Allah. But for some people who don't have that higher motivation, what's the minimum motivation you should have? If you're not going to do good things to please Allah, at least do good things. Why? Because the last day is coming, watch out. Right? So the highest standard and the lowest standard, or what motivates a person, is mentioned in one place. It's very beautiful how Allah does that in the ayah. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Then He says, وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ. Also a very interesting order. What does malaika mean? Angels. Then al-kitab, what does that mean? The book. And nabiyyin, very easy. What does that mean? Now think about that. Angels, books, prophets. You know what this sequence is? Well, in the end, we have communication not with the angels, and we don't have direct access to the books. Who did we get access to? Prophets. But where did prophets get their message from? The book. Where did the book come to them from? The angels. So it's the means of delivery. Now that you're motivated to do good things, here's where the instructions will come from. They will come through the angels by means of a book that will be taught to a prophet. And if you want to be good, you better learn this sequence. You better learn authentic knowledge that comes from this line, this chain. Valid things to do good. SubhanAllah. And all in one place, right? You want to be good? This is what you have to do. Now Allah mentions in the rest of this ayah, and I'll go briefly, some practical steps. This was what's going on the inside. What motivates us and where we should be looking for the definition of good things. That's been covered. Now He talks about some major good things you can do. And in Islam there are endless good things to do. There are endless good things to do. You can turn leaving your home into a good deed by making the right kind of dua. You can do a good deed by purchasing permissible food for your family and taking it home. There are endless amounts of good deeds. And there are small ones and big ones, right? What Allah does in this ayah is He takes the major things. Like in a building there are a lot of walls and there are a lot of bricks, but there are only a few pillars, structural beams. Those are the most important part of the building. Without those things, the building can't survive. A few bricks missing here and there is okay. Some chipping wall is fine. Some paint off is okay. But the beams are critical. So these are the beams that Allah has mentioned. What has He mentioned? First, it was, of course, the foundation, Iman itself. And on top of that, a building is being constructed. And He says, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Before I even go further. This person who wanted to become good in and out, he gave money, he gave wealth, against his love of it. Against his love of wealth. The question arrives here, Allah is already mentioning a reality for all of us. We love wealth. It's not like there's one person who says, I don't like money, I don't really care for it. No. We all love it. We all love it. There's something inside of us, it's not something that you can deprogram, it's there, Allah mentioned it. Even for the good person, he has love, he has to fight it though. Right? So it's there. It's not like the kuffar love money and we don't have a love for wealth. No, it's there. Allah put it there. And He said, عَلَى حُبِّهِ, against his love of it. Despite his love of that wealth, he spent it. Now the question is, why do we love wealth? Because money doesn't come cheap. It doesn't come easy. You have to give up a part of your life to do things that you don't want to do. Like go to school and graduate. Like go to a job 8-9 hours a day. Like get stuck in traffic every day. You have to give up a part of your life so you can get that paycheck. That paycheck is not just money, it's a part of your life. You know, your sweat and tears went into it. So letting go of it is not easy. Because, we invested a lot into it. So Allah acknowledges that, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, ala hubbihi. But even though He has that love for wealth, what does He do? This really good person, ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب. Man, Allah gave a long list. But He started with ذوي القربى, the closest relatives. Our closest relatives deserve our giving. The question is, why did Allah mention the closest relatives? And it's the wisdom of it is a lot. I'll mention very briefly. At least for us nowadays, the hardest people to get along with is who? Closest relatives. You get into the nastiest fights with your brother, with your cousin, with your uncle. You refuse to talk to them for months and months on end. Things get ugly between parents. Between husband and wife. Their relations, the ones that we have the most dealings with, tend to get ugly fast. It's easy for us to be nice to each other and smile and say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you? How are things at home? And keep the smile for an entire 5-minute conversation after Jum'ah khutbah with each other. But we cannot carry that 5-minute conversation with our brother, with our father, with our uncle. Not possible. 2 minutes later, I can't believe I called you and you clicked, But not only to be good to them, but when you think of charity, first think of them. ذوي القربى. Then واليتامى, which is interesting, Allah mentioned the orphans. Now the question is, how do we know who the orphans are? First of all, you will know the orphans in your family, number one. Number two, if we are not healthy members of a community and we don't know each other and we don't go to each other's houses and our families don't know each other's families, if there's a yatim standing next to you making salah for 20 years, you won't know. You have no idea. What is Allah mentioning, telling us between the lines by mentioning yatama? We have to what? We have to know each other. How are you going to give to until the yatim comes to you and puts a sticker on his head and says, look, I'm an orphan. No, you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself. And this idea of you having to know if somebody's having problem, يَحْسَبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلْ أَغْنِيَاء مِنَ التَّعَفُّفِ. Allah calls the person who has no idea that the person next to him has financial problems, He calls him jahil. The jahil thinks he doesn't need anything. تَعْرِفُهُمْ بِسِيمَاهُمْ. You'll recognize them from their faces. We have to be so sensitive to our own members of community. We look at them and say, you look like you're having trouble there. Everything okay? SubhanAllah. تَعْرِفُهُمْ بِسِيمَاهُمْ. We don't even make eye contact with each other. We say salam to each other while we're texting. Hey, go back to that. But I'll run along the ayah quickly, inshallah, because I'm way over my time. So, ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين, and the needy, those who can't help themselves, وابن السبيل, those who are traveling. Instead of them getting a hotel, they should be staying in our homes. We should be competing for hospitality for those who are traveling. والسائلين, and those who obviously ask. وفي الرقاب, and those who are bonded in the neck. In other words, those who are enslaved. Nowadays, there's modern slavery, financial slavery. There's mortgage slavery. There's credit card debt slavery. There's college debt slavery. There's new slavery now. New chains around our neck. Old neck, chains used to be around people's necks. Now there are new chains. But we have to recognize them. Then at the end of all of this, He says, وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. I think all of you know what that means. What does that mean? He established salat and what? Gave zakat. Do you remember? Allah first said you gave money against your love of it, and He made a long list, and He mentioned zakat again. What does that tell us? This is separate, that's separate. Don't think you gave zakat and you're done. No, it's a separate category. And when we think of being good, what do we think of number one? This guy's a good Muslim. What's the number one thing we think about? Salat. This guy comes to masjid, he's a good guy. Where did Allah mention salat in the list? Did He mention giving first or salat first? SubhanAllah. And He made a list. These are the people you should be taking care of, and you should be establishing salat, and you should be giving zakat. وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَاهَدُوا. And the people who fulfill their promises, if and when they make them, whenever they make a commitment, they fulfill it. And if they say, I cannot do it, they tell you to your face they can't do it. They don't get into business agreements. Nowadays, the scariest thing you'll ever hear in business is inshallah. Right? The scariest thing your partner will tell you, when you're making the payment, you say inshallah, soon. That means get ready for tough times, right? But Allah is describing those who attain goodness if and when they make a promise, and there's a switch to the ism fa'il form, mufuna. from a fi'l to an ism, which يدل على الدوام. It's alludes to all the time. There is never a moment where they get into a commitment, they don't fulfill it. This is part of being good. And these commitments are not just at the masjid or with brothers, or with the imam, or with the community. These are commitments at work, at business, in college, with your parents. The students here that made a promise to their parents, I'll study hard at school, and you're cutting classes. Even if you're making 5 salawat, you haven't reached goodness because you're cheating what Allah said. If you're a really religious guy at work and you're like watching Islamic videos all day, while your job is to actually, do some work, but you say, no, I'm listening to qira'ah of Quran. You think it's religious work. That's not religious. No, you're cheating your employer. وَالْمُفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَاهَدُوا. Then he says, وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. It's towards the tail and the toughest part, the climax at the end. Those who have sabr, they persevere, they're disciplined, they remain constant in tough times. فِي الْبَأْسَاء, in the midst of difficult climate of war. وَالضَّرَّاء, and even economic difficulty, social difficulty. This is something that is becoming easier and easier for us to relate to nowadays. وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ, and even in the midst of war, they have sabr. You know what this means? All of those good things they do, they don't become lazy in them when times get tough. That's what's saying at the end. Their iman stays strong, their salat stays strong, their giving stays strong, their commitments, their promises stay strong. All of those things stay in place, even if times are tough. They don't use difficult times as an excuse to change themselves. They don't use it, right now I can't. No. That's not their attitude. They have sabr. Part of the meaning of sabr is constancy. Which is why at the end of Al-Imran Allah says, Isbiru wa sabiru wa rabitu. Have continuity. So at the end of this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. I'll conclude with this. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. Right? أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. Those are the people who confirm the truth. Those are the true people. They're truthful. Truthful about what? Anybody can claim that they're Muslim. Anybody can claim that they're trying to be good, or they're good, or they think they're all right. These are the people who have, proved the truth, not by their words, but by what? Are these list of things speech or character? Actions. These are all actions. These actions have made these people truthful. Their tongue can say anything they want. Their tongue can say impressive things. But these people are truthful by actually having attained goodness. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. And these are the people that are truly, they've attained taqwa, meaning they've protected themselves. The last bit of, gem, and my favorite gem from this ayah that I wanted to hold back till the end, I'll share with you. It'll take me less than 3 minutes and I'm done, I promise. Inshallah. Here's what I wanted to share with you. The word bir in Arabic, which I translated as what? Who remembers? Goodness. Is related to another word in Arabic, which is bar. Bar. Bar in Arabic means land. Land, as opposed to bahr, right? Bahr is ocean. Like Allah says about Bani Adam, حَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. Right? We loaded him onto the land and onto the sea. Now, bir is connected to bar rhetorically in Arabic. What's the connection between the two? When someone's out at sea, or when someone's standing on solid land, which is a safer place to be? A solid land. And of course, if it's actual land that you're standing on, not some caving in roof or at the edge of a cliff. In the Quran, Allah describes people who are not good, who do bad things. He describes them as unstable. Either they're climbing up a mountain, يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ. And when you're climbing up a mountain, what can happen? You can slip and fall. Or he describes the mushrik as someone falling from the sky. وَمَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَكَأَنَّمَا خَرَّ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. Or he describes in Surah An-Nur, the one who does shirk, someone in the middle of the ocean, مِنْ فَوْقِهِ مَوْجٌ مِنْ فَوْقِهِ سَحَابٌ. He's in the middle of the ocean, no land. In other words, it's like describing people who are in the middle of instability. But then when Allah describes the righteous, it's like they have gotten away. And by the way, even مِنْ نَاسْ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. The one who worships Allah like the one standing at the edge of a cliff, unstable. But when Allah talks about goodness, it's like you reach solid ground. Now you're okay. Now you're stable. These things, they give us stability in life. They give us stability in our character. Look up this ayah yourself, inshallah ta'ala. It's not very long to memorize even and use in salat. This is ayah number 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah. May Allah help us understand His book and live by it and develop a love of it in ourselves and in our families. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How long have you spoken?
No, don't leave it. Don't press on the